Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Sempre Milan bonus podcast on Substack. When it rains, it pours at Milan. There is chaos all around from the top to the bottom. This week, it's been newspaper leaks about infighting, stuff about Conceição leaking stuff to the press. There's an awful lot to go through. Me and AJ are going to do it, and what a happy Friday it is.
What you got there?
It's kind of lager. We're going to need it. Happy Friday, brother. That's the that's by the way.
I still got my trusty scissors, so get those.
Well. Better swerve that actually after some of the comment after the questions on the last pod. Worst intro I've ever done that, by the way. And do you know why? Because I didn't even know what to focus on. We've got quite a bit to go through in this. We thought that it was a good idea to do it as a bonus pod. A, because timing, it's important to strike while topical, and B, it's a lot. There's a lot that's happened in just the last 48 hours alone, and I think it's important that we give it the time that we maybe wouldn't be able to do on the main pod, even going to one game a week as we are now, which is an absolute blessing, by the way.
Yeah,
4 days of the week. I don't have to think about the club at all. I could just
when you gave me the topic, you said there's a lot to talk about, and you sent me a bunch of links. I hadn't heard any of this because without having a game every 3 days, I said I don't have to think about this club for a whole week. This is nice.
I mean, I literally just messaged you this morning and said, this is what we're doing. Read this. Just for background knowledge. And it's long shit. It's not like little bite size.
That first article I opened, I said, Jesus Christ. It looked like it ended because there was like a video thing. And after I scrolled after that, it was another. Just kept going. I was like, oh, okay.
That's tactical, by the way. Get a little vid in there. Click that. Carry on. Yeah, right. Okay. So I have come up with some kind of structure of how we're going to go through this. We'll do our best with it. Obviously, some of it is, I guess, speculative, and other things I think we can say are true. And there's also part of this which has been denied, but I want to say is true because of its very denial, if that makes sense. So here's what we're going to start with. I think I sent you this. It's a feature that I put out, which was a combination of the information that we've had and also building off something that first came out from Foot Mercato in France. Now, they might not have been deemed a tier 1 source in recent years, shall we say, but recently they've got a lot of spot on. I think it would be right to say they were the ones who broke that we were speaking to and about to hire Conceição at the end of December. They were the ones who broke that we'd met with Fabio Paratici. So, they've got things right recently. And this was a real neck on the line report. So I'm going to read through sort of the bullet points from it, and then we can react and then move on to the next bit. So they said that the Milan management is more divided than ever into several camps on crucial issues that concern the steering of the ship moving forward. So what direction the club is going on. Said that Giorgio Furlani, obviously the CEO, and Redbird's senior advisor, Zlatan did make it clear that he's a Redbird employee, not a Milan employee, said those two are tearing each other apart. Those were the exact words. There's an internal clash between the directors. Again, those are exact words. And Ibra is being questioned more now than ever before. Furlani said something interesting before the Lazio game where he said, everyone's to blame, me above all, because all decisions pass through me. It was like him, swinging his dick saying, I'm the man in charge here. And they say relations have been tense for a few weeks. There's disagreements on who should be the new sporting director, and that's what seems to have brought all of this tension to a head. You've got Ibra wanting to hire his friend Iglitare. You've got Furlani and other members of the management wanting to hire Paratici, who, of course, was ex-Juve and Spurs. And then you've got Moncada in the middle of this wanting to hire Francois Modesto, French director, who he knows from, he was at Monza last. Again, it says here, on Ibra, some management employees are accusing him of waiting until the fire was completely burning before fully intervening. Others saying he takes up too much space for a figure not employed officially by AC Milan. Where's Cardinale in all of this? Well, he's kind of silent while all of this infighting continues, but Furlani flew out to the United States for a meeting with him earlier this week, and that was confirmed by the club. And apparently he was flanked by a couple of lawyers on the way. Right, so that's part one of it. Where do we go? I guess we start with, is any of this surprising? Did we know that this was kind of coming? We've said all along too many cooks might spoil the broth. How are we seeing it?
Yeah, the part that sticks out to me as like the most shocking and surprising is that Furlani is taking full credit for this, because as an outsider, you look at this and you go, the reason they have 4 people is so no one can be the sole one at fault for this giant mess. And it's so bad that he's like, nah, this is all me. Like that, then that doesn't actually line up to me, because if I'm one of 4 all doing the exact same job and things start to go south, I'm not the one stepping up to take full credit for it. So there's obviously a disconnect there in A, what's happening, and B, how to move forward, which is apparent by the different names. And I think everyone would agree that you probably just want one guy in charge, or the intermodel of a financial CEO and a sporting CEO, which seems to be working very well for them, and I think would work well for us. And I think Furlani could be that guy. I genuinely do. I think he would be fantastic at it. He was before. He could do it again. And I think the others should fuck off. You know, I don't need Zlatan here. It's been well documented that anyone could catch the smoke. You know, your like status doesn't like negate any criticism towards you, and a bad job is a bad job. So,
as Maldini found out.
yeah, Zlatan is my favorite player, as evident by this stupid bobblehead that sits on my desk.
Is that who that's meant to be? I thought that was Natalie.
Yeah, I bought it from one of those nasty little bodegas outside the stadium. It was like, I don't know, €3. But yeah, the reality is the club needs to move forward, and with him doing his thing, I don't think it's going to. Get rid of him, a special advisor to Redbird, not a Milan employee. Not needed, not necessary, don't care. Bye. Then you go down the list. Moncada. I think he's in over his head. I think he's a great scout. He was a head scout, and before that, he was a really highly regarded scout, finding a lot of incredible players. And I think the role that he's in now kind of suppresses a lot of those talents. I think we have a strong employee that we're utilizing incorrectly, and that's where the shuffle, the restructuring comes in. So you put him back, chief scout, head scout, whatever fancy title you want to give him, to where it doesn't feel like a demotion, but a sideways move. And he's in a realm where he actually excels at. You got Furlani as the financial CEO, where again he does well in, and then you get in a guy who actually knows the sporting. And honestly, all the names suggested are fine. They could do a job. They can't do a job if they are the 5th man. They need to have autonomy. They need the freedom. They don't. What happens when you have so many chief directors, whatever, is A, no one wants to take full action, and B, you have to run it by so many different people. And if you have Zlatan going to San Remo, and then New York, and then Furlani going to New York, and then everyone's in different countries all around the world, it's really hard to get it together. Yeah, we got cell phones, we got Zoom, we have StreamYard, as we're doing here. Like, we're not in the same country. We make it work, but we're not as busy as them. So we can schedule it on the same time every week. And even then, it actually is hard for us. We change the time pretty often. Today, we changed it like 3 times. So shit happens. And it's not cohesive to what the mission is. And if we want to bring Milan back to the top, we need to downsize a little bit in that structure, I think. So it's the right move. I don't really care who gets sacrificed in it. That's just the way it is.
Yeah, I agree with everything you've said there. I think if you go back to the premise of or rather the first point of this entire situation that we're in now, which comes essentially from the sacking of Maldini and Massara as the technical and sporting director, the idea was to launch this collegial working group, as they said, where they were going to share ideas, and there'd have to be a joint agreement on the thing to do to move forward. I actually don't think it's necessarily doomed to fail in principle, that kind of thing. For example, Liverpool have a transfer committee. They're doing pretty good. Their recruitment record's pretty good, So I think that it can work as long as you've got the right people in there. And I think that the right, what would you call it, the right alchemy, shall we say, can never be what we've got at the moment, which is, as you rightly pointed out, I think we've got 3 pretty competent members of the management. Zlatan, maybe jury's still out on, but Give me a second.
Maybe
Furlani,
sorry, I just want to go back to this committee thing. A committee
yeah,
can work, but in a committee, everyone doesn't have final say. It's you put into a vote, and
no,
I don't know if that's the structure we have in place, but it doesn't seem like it. It seems like everyone says, "I'm that guy. What I say goes." And when you have
that's
four
true.
people who their decision is final, it's not always going to be the same, and that's going to cause issues. But continue.
Yeah, I think as the Foot Mercato report alluded to, and as we've had confirmation on since, it's Furlani and Ibra. Those are the two that are going at it here. I think Moncada has always been happy to be a kind of behind the scenes guy. He's a technical director by title, but he's done about 3-4 interviews since assuming that role. So he's not public facing. The easiest thing you can do to take a square peg out of a round hole and put it into a square hole is you move Moncada back to be chief scout. As you said, he's got the pedigree for it. That is his strength. His contract's expiring at the end of this season, which is interesting. So you need to decide if he actually is the right chief scout. But I haven't seen anything to suggest yet that he should be let go. I would keep him there, give him a bit more time in his preferred role, because I think so far to this point, he served us pretty well on the balance of things. Furlani, as you mentioned, and as we've mentioned in previous episodes, the inter-style structure, and I say this, Antonello's actually left. I didn't realize he's gone as the corporate CEO. But as far as I know, they remain with this split of having a corporate side, so people who are literally hired for the commercial aspect, for the stadium issue, and things that are nothing to do with what we see on the field in those 90 minutes. It's the planning around that. That could be what Furlani does. He's a hedge fund guy. He's an Elliott guy. So you can dive into a whole deeper thing about what that means, having him around still. But ultimately, I think Jerry Cardinale holds him in high esteem, to be honest, and trusts his word. And I think that you can just shuffle him over slightly. He doesn't speak that much either. I was surprised when he spoke prior to the Lazio game. It was almost like he's like, no, it's my turn to speak to the cameras and remind everyone that I'm in charge. After Ibra's done his whole, I'm the big dog, I'm the lion, kittens around, all that shit. Like they're both just sort of shoulder barging each other, jostling a little bit. And then you've got Ibra, who remains the big unknown. I can understand how his actions and his words have alienated the fans. And I can also understand how what he has done since taking that senior advisor role might have rubbed up some employees the wrong way, because ultimately he is the one that, when he speaks to the media, I think his words carry the biggest weight. And when he's parading himself as a bit of a circus act, the whole thing's a circus, by the way. He's just a one act within it. But when he's doing that, I think it undermines the job that they're all trying to do. It can be so damaging rather than building up. And when the results on the field aren't running congruent to the almost arrogance of what we're hearing away from it, I think that's the difference, is that Ibra's always been so positive about things, and I'm in charge, blah, blah, blah. But then Furlani stepped up and said, no, I own this. This is way below expectations, and I'm the one who signs things off. So I think you've seen a bit of a conflicting approach as well. There's nothing unifying about what we're seeing from any of these members of the management. So Ibra's the unknown. Senior advisor, we don't really know his job title. But I think he can, if he has to, if he wants to. One thing I don't rule out, by the way, is that by the end of the season, he isn't a Redbird advisor. I think he might pack it all in. Because he said himself in previous interviews that he came back because, yes, he's a Redbird employee, but he wants to help Milan become great again. I think if Milan say, you're not going to do the same things now, he'll just say, all right, fuck this. I'm going to go do my paddle, or I'm going to do something with Hammarby or whatever.
That's what he should have done from the beginning. He got the best sending off I've seen as a Milan fan in the last 10 years, probably. That one after the final game of the season there. It's beautiful. Got the speech, had the montage, the jersey, had the standing ovation, even got the clap back at, was it Verona fans? I don't remember who was there. I think it was Verona. He had a fantastic sending off. He didn't need to come back, because when you're held at that level,
sorry.
No, when you're held at that level, the risk is far greater than the reward for coming back in an unknown role like this one. And he's proven that he didn't know how to make that transition. He knows he's doing marketability. He knows he's doing PR. And all he knows of himself as a PR machine is the mockery thing, the lion, the god, blah, blah, blah. I am Zlatan, speaking third person. that shit's only cool when you're winning. You know, you can't do it when you've just lost 3 games in a row. You see it with prize fighters. Conor McGregor talked all this shit. Everyone loved it. It was awesome. That's because he's knocking people out. Now he's just a drunkard and he's losing all the time and he looks like a fool. You know, you see this often. So I don't think it was the right call for him. There's a different type of marketing you need to do, different type of PR you need to do in a management role than as a player, because you're not marketing yourself as bigger than this. You know, you need to market the club as big. And I think he's done a less than stellar job at it. I don't know how I would have improved it, but it's not my decision, so it doesn't matter. But you were saying something.
No, I was going to say that I don't. I think they definitely could, and I'm not going to lie. If I cast my mind back, I seem to remember that the news that Ibra was coming back to us in some
Was well
kind of an
received.
executive role was, well, yeah, it was
Yeah.
like brilliant because of what we thought that he'd be doing. He'd be
Mhm.
at Milanello every day. He'd basically replace Maldini without the technical director title because he doesn't have the qualifications, blah, blah, blah. But he would be the one in and around the squad. He'd shield the squad. He'd face the media because that's what he's always done, but hopefully with an adapted style. And towards the end of his time with us, when he became like the mother hen or whatever you want to call him of that group that led them to the Scudetto, I thought he'd found a pretty good balance between
Yeah.
knowing when to joke and make the headline him, so to deflect
Yes.
away from the team, versus sometimes he'd just put his neck on the line and be like, I see a team in there that can win the Scudetto. He'd hype everyone up. And sometimes he'd be more emotive, like he'd speak about how difficult he's finding it with his injuries and stuff. I thought he'd found a perfect balance, and it's like, oh, he's actually matured away from that. And I
Yeah.
think he's just got a bit giddy in this new role, and he's given interviews where I think it's the clash of us as fans not seeing the performances we want. So we want clarity on what the vision is moving forward versus all he's ever known is not actually speaking about the truth.